All right, today we're going to talk about a company called Reducto, and it's this wild story about how a weekend project, basically a marketing stunt, accidentally became this foundational piece for the entire AI industry. It's a super fascinating look at how sometimes the biggest, most valuable problems are the ones hiding right in front of us. Let's get into it.
So let me ask you a question. What's the one thing holding back AI right now? You might think it's about needing more powerful chips or bigger models or more compute power, and yeah, all that stuff's important for sure. But the real bottleneck, the one that every single developer runs into, it's something way more basic.
You know, it always boils down to that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. It's the simple truth. You can have the most brilliant, sophisticated AI model in the world, but if the data you feed it is a total mess, well, the model's completely useless. And that is the unglamorous, super frustrating reality for pretty much everyone building an AI.
And that gets us right to the heart of our story today, this hidden bottleneck of data ingestion. It's all the boring, really difficult work that has to happen before you can get to any of the cool, flashy AI magic.
You know, there's actually a name for this phenomenon. Paul Graham calls it schlep blindness. It's this tendency we have to just ignore problems that seem boring and hard, even if they're incredibly valuable. Think about Stripe, right? For years, everyone knew online payments were a total nightmare, but nobody wanted to build the plumbing for it. Well, in the AI world, dealing with messy documents, PDFs, spreadsheets, scans, that was the exact same kind of schlep.
And this is where the story of Reducto takes a really interesting turn. See, the founders, Adit and Ronak, they never actually planned on solving this. They just kind of stumbled into it, almost completely by accident.
Okay, so check this timeline out. It's early 2024, and they're in Y Combinator working on something totally different, long-term memory for large language models. But then, over a weekend, just as a little side project, what they called a marketing stunt, they built this simple tool to segment documents. They threw it up online, and the reaction was, well, it was immediate, and it was overwhelming. They had accidentally built something people needed way more than their actual product.
I mean, come on, this is the kind of feedback founders dream of getting. People weren't just saying, oh, this is cool. They were saying it was better than what they were getting from huge players like Amazon's TextTract, and were literally asking, how can I pay you for this right now? When you get a signal that clear from the market, you do the only logical thing. You listen. And so they pivoted the entire company.
So why was their little weekend project so much better than all these established tools? Well, it all came down to a fundamental shift in how they looked at the problem. They decided to stop treating documents like lines of code and start treating them like images.
Just look at this comparison. The old way, man, it was a mess. It meant writing thousands of really specific, fragile rules for every single document layout you might see. If a company changed their invoice format just a little bit, your whole system would break. But Reducto's approach is completely different. It uses computer vision to look at the document visually, the same way you and I do. It just understands that a big gap between paragraphs probably means a new idea, or that a tab means something is a subpoint.
And that was the breakthrough. See, the founders came from a background in autonomous driving, so they brought those computer vision techniques to this problem. Instead of trying to parse the complicated back-end code of a PDF, they basically taught the AI how to read the page visually. This just unlocked a totally new and way more powerful way of understanding all that information.
And because this vision-first approach is so fundamental, it didn't just stop at PDFs. They quickly figured out it could handle all sorts of unstructured data that companies really struggle with. Everything from messy spreadsheets and images to, yes, even handwritten notes.
Okay, so the tech is cool, but the real test, right, is what can customers actually do with it? And this is where the impact of Reducto becomes incredibly clear.
In some cases, customers were saying that just by swapping out their old data tool for Reducto and doing nothing else, the end-to-end accuracy of their entire LLM application jumped by over 30%. I mean, think about that. That is a massive, massive improvement from changing just one piece of the puzzle. It just goes to show how critical that first step of data quality really is.
So let me give you a specific example. One customer was dealing with these notoriously messy real estate forms. You know the type, filled out by hand, with scribbled writing, weird checkboxes, just a total data nightmare.
So, what happened? Reducto extracted the data with 100% accuracy. A task that was basically considered impossible before was now completely solved. It just unlocked a whole new capability for their customer's product.
And their success isn't just with startups. They proved their mettle at the highest level, landing a Fortune 25 client just a few months out of YC. And let me tell you, it was an ordeal. It started with a single demo on one document that the client's own tools couldn't handle. That led to a grueling 5-month evaluation, and it all ended with this intense 8-hour grilling session with 14 people, including the very team they were competing against. But in the end, they won the contract. They proved their tech was ready for the big leagues.
So when you see a journey like that, from a weekend project to being a key vendor for one of the world's biggest companies, you realize Reducto isn't just another tool. It's really becoming a core piece of infrastructure for the whole AI economy. Their pitch to other companies is simple, and it's powerful. They basically say, look, don't waste your engineers' time becoming experts in parsing PDFs. Let us be your data ingestion team so you can focus on building the cool apps you actually care about.
So what does that mean for a developer? Well, it means you can ship better products and you can do it faster. Instead of wrestling with some brittle, complex data pipeline, you can actually unlock new features that were impossible before and get way more accurate AI apps to market in a fraction of the time.
Ultimately, it all just comes back to this one central idea. Reducto's success is built on this universal truth that in the age of AI, the quality of your input data directly, and I mean directly, determines the quality of your output. There are just no shortcuts.
The story of Reducto is a perfect example of what happens when you overcome schlep blindness. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredibly valuable, boring, difficult problems are hiding out there in plain sight, just waiting for someone with a fresh perspective to come along and turn them into the next big thing.